There we are. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Sovereign Village Project. As usual, we had to figure out our constant technical difficulties, but I think we got her up and running. We're here in the kitchen, which is getting closer and closer to finish. We have our wine bottles and our eggs and fresh produce, so it's almost a real kitchen now. We don't have plugins yet, but we're getting there. But so we were talking over topics today, and there was one that was really kind of close to our minds right now, which is leadership in times of collapse, which is really the time we're in now. And it seems like a kind of broader topic than we normally tackle, but it's really been at the forefront because we've been dealing with a lot of community issues here, like in the broader community. We're on the local fire department, and we are Gabby's involved in a large festival it's like the town festival out here. And all of them have been in like real crisis with constant flooding out here. There's been the flooding that came through Middle Tennessee was in our fire district. So it's really taxed resources in the county to the limit. And then this festival was also canceled because of flooded fields and parking and everything. And so we've been watching how the leaders of the community are responding, and just kind of talking over that, talking over how we're preparing for this kind of very different future than what we're used to, and kind of how we need to be leading the way in everything, in every change we want to see. Because when we do, we find that people flock to it, and they're just kind of waiting for somebody to have the voice to do it. So none of us are charismatic people or natural leaders or anything like that. But
it's like, how
you
can
don't
you
need
lead
to be.
how can you lead in your own way, and what is the world of today asking?
And we're trying to lead and point
from you?
neighbors. So it's not like leading as in necessarily always a hierarchy, but like you're leading by, for example, we try to garden and do a lot of stuff at the top of our property, which is visible to our neighbors. We want them to see this is normal. This is what everybody, forget that lawn, maybe get some food in the ground. So we're not trying to lead what they're doing. We're just trying to show an example of what, of how they could be living better. And Gabby does a similar thing. Like oftentimes when she works out, she likes to do so at the top, and she runs around this area a lot. And part of it is because she's wanting to normalize and encourage that, because right now, obesity is a massive killer here, especially as we're in this time of disease. People with all these comorbidities like obesity are really at risk. And so those are just little areas where we've been trying to find leadership, or trying to just be visible in what we're doing without being pretentious about it or anything like that, of course.
But also the fact that we're putting on our own festival too, the Back to the Land Festival, which isn't just in under 2 weeks. Has also kind of opened our eyes to different aspects of leadership that we've never really thought about before, like things like delegation and how you can only get so much done yourself, how you do need to kind of lean into other people, other members of your community to actually get stuff done. Like Matt and I are just very much people who don't like to ask for help, and so we try to shoulder a lot of stuff for ourselves, and you just kind of realize, oh, we're actually not as effective, or we don't do as well alone when we could be doing things together. And so I think it's like led us to different ideas. Like I know Nicole Sauce, who will also be at the festival, she's mentioned that she is part of like a GSD crew, which is a get stuff done crew.
Get stuff done.
And like that's just one of those ways where these people, like someone in that group said we need something like this. They took leadership and said we need to do this because we understand that it's about teamwork, and it's not necessarily just about who the leader is.
So what we need to be building as we go into this period of collapse is this new, better way of life. This decentralized, more free, more regenerative, more independent way of life. And we just need to be leaders in creating all of that stuff. And so if you think about what we're going to need to rebuild, if we are people who are not going along with the agenda right now and doing exactly as we're told and succumbing to this totalitarian government, we're being ostracized, we're being locked out of potentially healthcare. It's being openly talked about, like, these dirty anti-you-know-whats. We can't have anybody make their own medical choices, and if they do, we're going to lock them out of the taxpayer-funded healthcare that they paid for. We're going to prevent them from free transportation, lock them out of all the businesses, and force the businesses to lock them out of employment. So schools. So we're going to have to find a replacement for every single one of those roles if it's a needed role, which we do need to educate our children and ourselves. We need to obviously eat food. We need to stop. Sorry, Holly's going off. We need to grow food. We need to make clothes. We need to have materials for building houses. We need to have somebody fixing roads. So all of these roles, we're going to have to figure out how to do them without government. And so that means leading the way and creating them. So for example, we've talked about getting a school going at the local community center, just a homeschool group. We don't have kids, but just to get it started, we may in the future, and to have it established, but also just because our community needs a school. We can't be shuttling them off to these Marxist indoctrination camps to be abused and mentally scarred by the mass rituals and the social distancing and just the totalitarianism and the brainwashing of subjecting these poor children to. We need to be creating the solutions in our community. So all of these things, if nobody's doing them in your community, unfortunately, go look in the mirror and you'll see who has to be the leader. So this isn't like us people like seeking these self-aggrandizing roles.
Yeah.
It's like, well, shoot, nobody else is doing this. Nobody else is solving crime in my community. Nobody else is doing this. So we have to do everything.
So we kind of have to build these leadership skills that maybe, in pre-apocalyptic world, we may not have even really considered important, but now they are, and it's becoming a lot more important for people like us to be leaders and to show that there is another path or there is another way, and to kind of guide people through it. So even things like feeling like you're not qualified enough or knowledgeable enough, like if you know something more than another person, then you should be helping them.
Yeah. By the way, we got some good folks in here who want to say hi. Chicken Juice says, hey, just found the channel recently, loving the content. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Glad to have you here. Shouting at Cloud says, the rules for drinking in a commune are fairly strict. Either everybody has to make their own alcohol or there is no alcohol at all, like the Amish. I'm just going to go down the rabbit hole on that one because we're talking my language now. Distilling and making wines and making beers is just such a great skill to have if you're a person who's not opposed to alcohol. If you think about a distilled product, like if you're making a basic corn whiskey or something like that, or corn mash or sugar wash alcohol, not only is that alcohol with immense trade value immediately because people like moonshine right now, never mind later in a SHTF scenario. But also you've got something that can sanitize. You've got something that can be used to extract tinctures from herbs. You can't make tinctures without alcohol or some kind of oil or something. So it's a tool for that. You can actually make ethanol to fuel. You can convert a chainsaw to run on it, or a gas tractor or a vehicle. So the ability to distill alcohol is a valuable one for us all. Chicken Juice says custom brews nice. Oh, you're talking about these? So these are something very different. I am a coffee person, not an energy drink person. But these are from V8 and they're relatively, compared to other energy drinks, healthy. And I've just had to have these when I'm playing music in town and I'm doing 12 hours straight and coming home at 3:30 a.m. As unhealthy as an energy drink is, it's healthier than dying in a fiery wreck, because I fell asleep at the wheel. So I've had to drink energy drinks because there's just no coffee to be found there. So I'm trying to find the least harmful one. And we had a few of these laying around and we've had a long day. Gabby's been dealing with crises all day with the flooding that happened here. We had to kind of cut our mini 18-hour vacation short to come deal with that. So we figured we finally earned an energy drink.
Yes.
But yeah, we do love microbrews. I'm from Oregon, so I grew up in hop country where all the hops are picked for IPAs and just it used to be most beers. So we got very used to that. Shouting at Cloud says unregulated gambling commune leads to taking other people's possessions through trickery. So it sounds like a lot of community ideas. And we should actually kind of talk about what we're talking about when we talk about community. So this channel was formed at the very beginning with the idea of forming an intentional community. But we've really kind of changed our vision since. While I would still love to have a 400-acre patch to just design from scratch to be, regenerative and economically self-sufficient and everything, where we're at right now, we're millennials, we don't have a lot of money. It's been a year-long journey to just build a house without debt. That's been on 5 acres, and we're pretty well tapped out financially now. So we're going to be trying to leverage our assets, purchase more land, but we're not leveraging overly leveraged, but to use our assets to basically purchase more land to build bigger and bigger things. But because we looked around and we saw the community is already here, we just need to connect the like-minded people. There are so many people in our community who care about the environment. Our next door neighbor, we just randomly moved next to him, cares about the environment, wants to be free, wants to be left alone, good, strong family person. Like these are who your people of the community are. You don't, and when you strip away all of the pretense and all of the complications of an intentional community, you realize like we actually need to just be able to solve these problems and build communities
with people who are
in existing
already,
communities.
yeah.
It's not going to be an option. There's not going to be enough funds. They're about to take all of the capital as this inflation brings everything crashing down, and they're going to purchase all of the land, the basically cronies of the Federal Reserve. So people just aren't going to have 100-acre, 400-acre things they can make communities out of. So what we have to do is solve the answers in rural areas right now and just solve the problems in rural areas right now and make our communities within them. So as we make our community, we are connecting with people who are maybe not right next door, but they're like walking distance or they're very close and they're like-minded. That's who we're building our co-op with. That's who we're trying to build a farm stand with. And we're trying to like work with them and see what they're farming and build a community within a community. And so when we talk about community, we're kind of referring to our whole area around us. And we're also still in a way kind of building an intentional community because we're trying to buy like a lot nearby for a farm stand. And if property comes up nearby, we will try to purchase it over time as we are able to build wealth, and to continue to build this vision of self-sufficiency, regenerative agriculture, free trade, liberty, and things like that. So I just wanted to clarify what we're talking about when we talk about community, because I love intentional communities. I'm currently designing two intentional communities with our homestead design business. And I love everything about that. I would love to start one from scratch someday. But for now, the community we're building is more of a replicable model that anybody can go into any community and start building this kind of community. And so all of these leadership roles, these aren't like assigned roles that you need to do in an intentional community. This means just start taking on these right now wherever you're at.
Taking on things you're like interested in.
Even if you're not where you want to be yet, even if you're still in the city trying to save up the money to get rural land, which you need to do, like don't be in a city, period. But even if you have to be there for another year or two, start building that community now around you. It's still really important.
Yeah, like for example, like when I say like lean into your gifts, I mean like if you're someone who's really good at bringing people together, then do that for, even if it's for like a different mission or a different like issue that maybe you're less interested in, but you're just really good at getting people to show up at one location at the same time. Like I have a friend who I run with in this county, and he's just one of those people who can like engage people really well. You know who I'm talking about. But he just like created a Facebook event the other day for some friends to meet him at some game place. I don't know, some gaming restaurant sort of thing. And I'm sure he had like 20 people show up just because of who he was and just he was a natural leader in that kind of respect. So I think just thinking about like what are those things that you've always been good at doing, or people have come to you for, you know, how can you use that in these kind of collapse times? How can you
everyone around you is either an asset or a liability, and they're also either a friend or an enemy. There's kind of no in between. So that's also important to look around the community and say, that's who I want to make friends with and get to know. You want to look for the upstanding, upright people who are not buried in their own addictions and who have some kind of moral code, ideally. Like, you can say what you will about fundamental Christianity, but you know what their moral code is. You can read what their moral code is. In this world of postmodernism and of the rejection of any absolute truth, we are in collapse times. And when you see a stranger on the street, you truly don't know what his values are. It reminds me of reading books about, I'm from Oregon, and we have a lot of old books about the Oregon Trail. And I remember reading about people coming on the Oregon Trail, and many times Indians and settlers and anybody out there in the West in those first early days, if you saw somebody out there, you would just shoot them, not knowing if they were your enemy or not. You just saw somebody out there, they would just shoot them because you didn't know what culture they were from, what their values were, and there was a good chance they were going to kill you too. And like, I'm not saying it's going to be that wild, but like, it's important to know the values of the people around you and to start working with them if they're people you want to associate with. And what I found is if they do not share those values, you might think that you can work with them or hire them and stuff, but we've just run into disaster after disaster with that, and to the point where like, before I'll trust anybody, I'm looking at what their values are and how they conduct themselves and everything like that, which is what we should have all been doing in the first place. But we're kind of rediscovering all of these very basic skills. We have some awesome comments. I'm having to resist going down the alcohol rabbit hole because I love distilling. It's one of my passions. We actually visited a distillery, Samuel T. Bryant Distillery, just outside of Jackson. wonderful little distillery. Met some amazing folks there who were very like-minded, actually, talking about, it was just us there at the distillery. It was a slow day, and we ended up just talking to them for a long time about everything going on and how, from their perspective, it's crazy now because you can now meet total strangers, and within minutes, it's not like when all this first began, I would be talking about like, hey, the government's kind of like out of control. This is totalitarianism, and we should either do something or run or fight or something. And now to hear people talk about it and openly, total strangers, like every day, all week, people I meet are talking about, this is not okay. I'm not okay with the way things are going. So that was very encouraging. But anyway, I'm going to avoid the because I'll talk way too long about distilling and all of that. But Chicken Juice asks, has anybody heard of Curtis Stone? He is right up this alley, a good source for leadership / community and agriculture. Curtis Stone is a wealth of information. I'm going to probably sign up for it. So he's moved most of his content from YouTube because of all the censorship. But he's got an online kind of membership portal with lots of video and study content for like farming, not just gardening. His content's focused on like really small scale agriculture and doing it profitably. And he's a great businessman. He's a Canadian that I don't know if he was in Toronto or Ontario, but quite a while back, he got really well known for urban farming. So he would just like rent out people's yards, farm a bunch of greens and really fast growing, high yield, high value crops. And he would harvest them and sell them to markets. And he built a lot of wealth doing that. And then he started putting out content. He's no longer urban. He's kind of gotten out of the city, and his project is cool to see because he said he did really well financially. So he's building all of our dream prepper homestead right now. And it's so much fun to live vicariously and be like, if I had an earth mover. But wealth of information. He's a big truth focused guy. And he has a lot of great liberty focused content, as well as content about commercial farming on a small scale and stuff. So highly recommend checking out Curtis Stone and From the Field, which is his website. Shouting Clouds. Strand Adventure. Sorry, late to the party. We are finally moved to our homestead. Congratulations. Nice. What a feeling that is. I've never had actually a good feeling walking onto a homestead because it's always been like right away we were overwhelmed with something. Yeah. My first homestead was a meth lab in a meth house trailer on an acre that was literally a landfill. That was the first property I could afford. So walking, I never got that like warm, fuzzy, like, yeah, I'm home, because I was like, I'm not going to live here. I ended up living there for about a year and cleaning it up. But like slowly it's getting better. We walked onto this land, this 5 acres, and it was like, okay, I can live here for a while. Yeah. Nice. But it was still overwhelming, building a house from the ground up, and everything is no small feat. So congratulations, y'all. It's very exciting. Shouting at Cloud says, I grew up in Pennsylvania. Oh, that's related to the earlier comment. Tommy D, welcome in. All right, so let's pick up where we left off. So we're talking about leadership in the community, and we're defining what we mean. So what we're talking about and encouraging people to do is right now, just go start becoming leaders in any way in your community and start moving us towards the solutions we all need to do. So let's just kind of brainstorm a few things that either we're trying to do or other people are doing, and we're supporting things that are going to make our communities, meaning the area around us, stronger, happier, healthier, more resilient, more regenerative, more sustainable, all of these good things that we want around us, since we have to build this bubble of protection around us kind of from the totalitarianism and the collapse that's happening. What roles do we need to take on? What kind of specific actions can we take? And so if you think about it, every problem is a solution you have to take leadership over or delegate to somebody or join somebody who's taking leadership over. So for example, right now in our community, one of our problems is security. As collapse increases, the folks who are already trouble, like the meth heads, the drug addicts, the people who are already criminals, it's harder for them to access funds as things get tighter. So they start committing more property crimes. So that's like a security issue we have to address right away. Is property crimes are skyrocketing. Overdoses are skyrocketing by every metric. Crime and death and destruction and poverty out here are getting worse, just like everywhere. And so, of course, we take our own personal solutions. We're building a fence or a gate, security lights, cameras, all of that stuff around the property, planting out a death hedge, which is going to be a fun project I'm going to do, stealing it from David the Good, who has a great channel. Well, there's all the measures we'll take on our own property, but our security is not going to end at our property. You know,
No.
our neighbors all have the same problems, and this is what I was talking about. You're trying to get to know the really upstanding people who are living the kind of life that is indicative of somebody who has a healthy mind and a future. You get to know these folks, and you start building security networks. We're working on communications networks between us and our neighbor who lives probably about half a mile to a mile away. So we're getting ham radios. And then I have folks who live much further away, and we're getting CB radios to be able to contact them. So if it truly gets to the point where we completely have to provide our own security in a very crime-ridden world, if the police are which is probably what's going to happen, is the police are going to become increasingly overwhelmed, and their funds will shrink up, and that's what collapse is going to look like. So it's not that it's going to necessarily be, EMP and complete chaos. It's just going to be that the ability of police to address security in our neighborhoods is just going to decrease, and crime will increase, and they'll be emboldened because the jails won't be able to handle them. We already saw that. Like, I had a court date for a jaywalking ticket because of coronavirus, pushed back for months and months and months, and the courts are just not able to deal with anyone. The jails aren't able to deal with anyone, which I'm sure is intentional, is flood the communities with.
And also, like, who knows, like, at some point, cops may not be able to respond to your call if you're not.
They already essentially don't.
Or something,
Yeah, that's true. They're already threatening to
so.
withhold services from us, filthy, unvaxxed people. So why wouldn't they say, you're causing safety concerns, so you have no access to public safety? So
yeah, and so I know, and then just to apply this to also the community through the volunteer fire department we're working on, we've been talking about what was that free tool called, or educational resource for I think it was like CERTs or something, but CERT, yeah. We're working on basically trying to actually educate and inform members of the community about just common, like, safety hazards and safety protocols, safety hazards, safety precautions, so that they can more people in the community feel like that they're empowered to help themselves in situations. Because if you are someone who is with someone who is having a heart attack or something, the first responders aren't really the first responders, like you are. So
that's what we're talking about. Like, so once we can't do any more solutions at our own property in our own area of domain, we start going out into the community and making solutions happen. That's one of them in the case of, like, it's very difficult right now for the fire department to be able to respond to everything. Just that flooding overwhelmed every department in this county. So we want to have more people prepared next time. So the same goes for security. So that could mean starting a neighborhood watch, or my preference is because a neighborhood watch kind of has its own traditional structure, which is basically in the end call law enforcement. I really like mutual assistance groups, which are basically like-minded neighbors in a neighborhood within close proximity, setting up a communications network and saying, here's just meeting like once a month, evaluating what the situation is. They gather a little intelligence about crime, bring the police blotter or any personal information they have about crime. They maybe make a map of the neighborhood and say, here's our problem area, here's the meth lab, here's where we know our drug dealers are at. These are really going to be important and valuable. And it could also just be like, hey, we're sick this week. We need somebody to bring us a casserole. A mutual assistance group can be for anything. And so it's basically a bunch of neighbors getting together to really assist each other through these tough times. But in one of those ways, it would be security. You gather intelligence, you find out who's around you, you find out where, okay, there's a motorcycle gang next door. By the way, a Forward Observer is a great channel to teach a lot of that, and he has a lot of courses and stuff. But anyway, you just gather information, and there as a group, you decide what to do with that information. You could decide to work with law enforcement or whatever option you're choosing from there. But the important thing is you're getting the information and making plans of action. And you can also say, okay, like, we know that most of the crime happening right now is petty break-ins of tool sheds. So be like, okay, we all have looked at the data together. Let's all help each other get some security lights set up. Let's order them in bulk, get a cheap price. Or it could be that there was a lot of armed robbery happening at night. So maybe then you start having a patrol or something, whatever the situation is, it's adaptable. But so that's just one solution for security that's at the community levels, forming a neighborhood watch or some kind of security group like that. When it comes to healthcare, obesity is really bad out here. And it's a problem because obese people are more likely to die of a disease like coronavirus. Barely a threat to us. Somebody who's obese, it's a huge threat to them. So that means they're going to be more scared and more likely to vote for tyrannical things or allow tyrannical things because they're so scared of the virus. They're susceptible to fear because they're weak. They're in a weak position. So we want to shore them up, make them healthier, happier, safer, and stronger. And so the solutions that we do there, Gabby's getting a personal trainer certification. So she will start teaching people in our community. She's going to get the fire department. She's going to offer free personal training to them, get our first responders in better shape. And we're going to try to solve the food problem. We live in a rural food desert. So we're going to try to solve the food problem. We're setting up a food co-op. All of these things, we could list them all day. We could, setting up plant swaps. That's a leadership role. Somebody needs to get that going, getting farmers markets going or CSAs going, getting schools going, micro schools, homeschool groups, co-ops. All of these things need to be done. And we have to do them. There's nobody else to do them. So if you start looking through life through that perspective, it changes you so much to think, oh, nobody's doing any of this and everything is up to me. Everything I want in life, as far as security, happiness, whatever kind of environment I want to live in, I have to create. We are permaculture doesn't end at your property boundaries. Permaculture is what you're trying to spread everywhere within your reach, within your area of domain. So you're trying to spread this idea of caring for people, caring for the earth, and returning the surplus to those two. It's not as simple. It's really simply the golden rule. The only difference than the golden rule is that you're also kind of including that, hey, maybe we should think about the earth because that's going to affect us too. If you're really following the golden rule, it's actually included, because if you don't care for the earth, we're seeing what's happening. Our resources get used up. We end up in war and starvation, and we go into a collapse phase. So if we truly loved God as ourselves, which is the other part of the golden rule, then we would say we're not going to trash his creation. So permaculture is really just a version of saying the same thing, but that's why everyone should study permaculture, even if that's a buzzword you don't much care for. It helps you think in that way. And then when you think in that way, you look at your community, you say, I am the solution to everything. And that can be fit within a charitable framework or a capitalistic one. We want to solve the food problems in this community. People are obese. People don't have good food options. The produce at the store is garbage. It's rotten and shipped up from Mexico. We can solve that by getting our farm going and keeping the inputs low, making it cheap, spreading a replicable model to our neighbors and getting them to also grow food and selling it at a co-op to our neighbors, without a middleman, so we can keep that price low. Now we've solved the problem of food access in our community, and we've made money. It's a business, not a charity, but it could also be a charity. So when you think of doing good and being altruistic and improving the community, it is also selfishly motivated in a way. You're trying to build a better place to live in. But also it doesn't exclude you from profiting from all of your labor. There's some more great comments in here.
Yeah.
Out and Back says, I grew up in a small town. Within the last 10 years, we've turned into a big city. I would recommend keeping an eye out for future housing development and trying to shut those down before they build. Yeah, there's often not much you're going to do about that, because anytime you try to use the law, zoning or things like that. I grew up in Oregon, which was like the first place they tested Agenda 21 in the USA. And when they make all those restrictions on subdivision, on building new houses, the only people they really stop from building houses are us, people who just want to build on a 5-acre lot or build a homestead on their parents' land or something. That's who gets excluded out. They keep all their crony developers who have the money. They just bribe them and pay all the crazy engineer fees and just build crazy expensive developments. You can't stop it through government. So what you really have to do if you don't want to be living in a development, and none of us with a brain do, is you need to look for areas that are not development friendly. If you're within 45 minutes of a major city, it's going to get developed. If there's major jobs and industries in your area, it's going to get developed. For us, we kind of found a lucky hidden spot in between. There's some development out here, but it's very hilly landscape. So it's not necessarily all that. There's no big farms here. Everything's just like hill. It's almost the Appalachians, but not quite. And so areas like that are just not that conducive to development. So you have to look at the land around you and say, okay, there's better places. There's giant fields close to the city. Those are all going to fill up before they get out here. So it's up to you to really look to the future and watch the trends. How are the cities going to grow? You can also you can also search for mega regions. There's a lot of information out that, which is basically the NWO plan. Actually, I'm going to quit using the word New World Order, because it's the old world order. It's the same old elites that have always run everything, trying to build something new, and they're not going to. They're going to collapse. So anyway, the old world order, folks, it's their plan for development. It's great that it's out there. You can see this. Essentially, they're making cities feudal centers and running public transit lines down the major thoroughfares into the rural areas. But when they get about an hour away, those mega regions end. So I suspect, and we're already seeing it, the development is going to be mainly in those areas. So the more rural you can get, and economically depressed areas are your friend, because we should all be walking away from industry anyway and walking into financially self-sufficient lives where we have skills that we trade. So if you really look into the Appalachians, the Ozarks, Middle Tennessee, a lot of these regions, a lot of Mississippi, there's a lot of areas that are not going to develop the same as others, but you do have to kind of just be on top of that and understand where the development's going to happen. Or also realize that maybe this is not your final homestead. You know, development will somewhat come out to this county. We plan to stay here, but we may leapfrog out to a more rural area when we buy more land.
Yeah. And also, I wouldn't completely, totally rule out not trying to make some headway with government or organizations. I think if that's something that is important to you and you want to fight, I think you could, become kind of lobbyists for your cause and present alternatives too,
That's one thing I would like to change what the paradigm on is development. I want to be a permaculture developer. That's where I'm going. I've been starting to steer my homestead design more into community design because that's super exciting for me. And I've been very lucky to get a couple of those jobs right now, which I'm going to, as much as I can, I'll share them with the channel, but they're very exciting. But my eventual goal is to actually develop homesteads because we can build. It's okay for us to build homes on this earth. Humans have a right to build homes, and there's not too many of us. And that number is pretty much, I think we're done growing pretty soon here. So we have a right to build homes. It's okay to build developments if they're built correctly because we truly can live in harmony with nature. The biggest lie that we believe is that we cannot live good, comfortable lives relatively in harmony with nature. That's just simply not true. We can build buildings that in the course of a couple hundred years will just go into the ground and not poison the earth. We can build farm systems that allow wildlife in and actually benefit and work in conjunction with each other. That's what permaculture is. So if we do it right, we absolutely can continue to develop. And we could develop much more livable places. We could, if we actually thought about how people wanted to live, every development, even small ones, could have rings of evergreen trees or shrubs and total privacy and noise barriers and so much more sustainable systems built in. We just choose not to because it's not really cheaper. It's because we mostly don't allow people to build natural buildings. We don't allow them to build what we want. The developers lobby and use government against us, and they use it to build those nightmare developments. Like go to the old part of any small town and look at that small town area. It's usually a bunch of big brick buildings. You got your courthouse, your town square, beautiful, aesthetic, easy walking to all of the businesses, plenty of parking usually out back and in the center. Beautiful, wonderful design. There was no zoning that happened with any of that. Usually those were hundreds of years ago. But then you look to those other parts of towns where the new development is, and they sprawl along the highway, and it's strip malls and gas stations, and some of those areas were still built when there was cars and stuff. But one made way more sense, and it was beautiful and had a smaller footprint. And then the nightmare, ugly, disgusting development is all in zoned areas. So I do have, take a little bit of exception to like being able to use government effectively, but it just depends on the situation too. But in the end, like we could develop things nicely. And so that's what I'm going to be trying to do with my career is invest as I am able to build wealth to that point, invest in actually developing regenerative developments that improve broken areas. One of the most exciting things is to find a gravel lot or just a destroyed place with garbage everywhere or somewhere that really needs regeneration. And then building a home or some homes, but also bring the area back to life at the same time. And we're surrounded by that. There's plenty of decay and messy, abused landscapes in America and the rest of the world. So what an opportunity as permaculture practitioners to take leadership of that and go into these areas and fix them up. That's where the opportunity is, and that's where the need is. Let's see, I'm way behind you. Mm-hmm. So many great, thank you everybody for being so involved too. That makes, we look forward to the community hour all week, and it makes it so much fun when we can have these conversations with everybody. Pafford Homestead says, yes, our little town outside of Houston, Texas is being developed. We're going to build 15,000 homes. Sucks. Yeah, it's brutal and sad, but it's not going to stop. You're not going to stop development because Texas is so livable right now. and all the Californians and everything are looking at that and they're going in there. It makes sense. If I wouldn't want to live in that area, I don't want to live in development. So you just have to look at that and realize it's coming and just make a decision. It can be really hard to uproot and leave the people but what I've found is that in a city or in the suburbs of a city, those things are designed to destroy community and family anyway. And so you end up just getting more and more disconnected from your family and from community. So you might as well just leave. Because in the end, you might stop a housing development or two, but like if a wave's coming at you, you're not going to stop a wave. And that's what development is. Now, of course, what we don't really know is going to happen this next year, this next decade. There's probably going to be a lot of depopulation, but I think there's also they're still trying to keep urbanization happening. That's what a lot of this is about. Agenda 21 is trying to force urbanization because it's kind of turning, the needle's kind of turning the other way. We're entering into ruralization would be my theory. And people like us, we're getting a brain gain in the rural areas, brain drain in the cities. It's reversing because nobody who has any critical thinking skills wants to be in the cities right now. They can see where things are going. So what's cool about rural areas is also like for the first time in a long time, a lot of people are moving back who are like young and energetic and ready for positions of leadership like this. So we all have so many opportunities to be doing that and leading the way, and we have to. Nobody's going to do it for us. T Black says, hey, and says, got my greenhouse in a couple days ago. Nice. Congratulations. We have 3 different greenhouse projects. None of them are started yet. We're doing a small one up to the south side of the house, not against it, but right next to it to capture all of that heat. We're doing one on the south side of our barn. And then we're going to be doing a freestanding heist tunnel for commercial greens and nursery product production from a Farmer's Friend, great company. Tommy D says, afternoon, y'all. So we can stop paying taxes. Always a good idea. The cops use radios for security. Seems to work well for them. Yeah, every organization does. I work in bars too, and the large bars downtown, they all have radios. Communication is key for any organization. It's not going to function without communication. That's kind of what we saw at this festival. Was there was a communication breakdown, and that led to a lot of problems. So, and nobody had walkie-talkies. You couldn't use your phone up there at the site. It was a mess. So, communication is both obviously like figuring out how you're going to communicate with the group and then figuring out the specific mechanisms.
Too.
Yeah, and there's different things for different. You can use cheap Walmart walkie-talkies if you're just dealing with a farm-sized property. But I actually want, as we get larger property, or even here on the 5-acre site, I kind of want to have us have walkie-talkies if we don't have phones, because it could be, hey, a log fell on my leg, or a snake bit me and I can't move or something. The ability to contact, like a lot of accidents happen on farms. It's a workplace, and there's nails and animals, and you're in the wild, and you're logging, working with tools. And it could be a security thing. Gabby could be letting me know, hey, there's somebody at the gate here that doesn't belong. So I really think we need, I don't think there's one size fits all solution. I think cell phones, obviously, knowing their problems, are still one we think about. Zoom and YouTube are methods of communication as well. That's how we're communicating here. So that's a part of this network. That's actually, this channel is how we've made a lot of friends in this area and connected with a lot of people. So there's a lot of levels of communication. And one of the first areas of leadership you might take on is just finding like-minded people and convincing them to either buy some of that equipment or buying it as a gift or something, or just having a pack of radios ready to go. I think what we're looking at doing is CB for long distances, and then some like hams, which can tap into long distances, but are mainly for like within this community. And then we'll just have for our festival and things like that, we'll have the handheld store ones, because they're so cheap compared to everything else. Shouting at Cloud says people are stockpiling Vectormen to treat themselves. Yep. Because hospitals are becoming more of a dangerous place to be, and they long have been a dangerous place to be. Hospitals are not safe or good places for the most part. Wonderful people working in them, but yeah, bad places. We already read that one. All right, cool. All right, we're all almost caught up with comments here. So many great ones. Thank you all. Shout out Cloud saying, yes, the YouTubers Permaculture Farm have 3 different properties triangulated, and they're highly successful just by being neighbors. So Permaculture Farm are some of our greatest friends. We absolutely love their content.
No. Permaculture Farm.
Oh, I was saying permapastures. My bad.
But that's interesting because they're also in North Carolina.
Yeah, we'll have to see if they can hook up with each other. Well, I'll just finish my shout out to Billy anyway, since he got me started. He has so many areas of like expertise that are really relevant to a lot of people right now. I'm sending homestead design clients to his videos when they're looking at regenerative grazing, and so many other topics. Great channel.
guilds. He's really
Guilds, very good
at
with
that.
guilds. Yeah, just so if I started listing everything, all the information on there, I'd be doing compost. Yeah, there's a lot of videos I don't bother making because like he's already got it. Does such a good job, and his channel is also so fun and like relaxing and fun to watch, but also energizing, making you want to get stuff done. He will be at the festival too, so double plug right there. Very excited to hang out with Bill. He's going to cook up a pig for us and show us all how to butcher it properly.
If you don't know what we're talking about, it's the Back to the Land Festival. You can learn more about it at backtothelandfestival.com.
Yeah, we're throwing it in 2 weeks, so there's still some slots to get in if you hurry. We're very excited. We already have so many great people coming, and it's going to be such a cool time of connection with like-minded. And you talk about like starting leadership. We're going to be starting that. We're going to be saying, okay, everyone get in groups, regional groups,
help people like actually figure out how to be a leader in their region.
And with specifics, we're going to break people into groups based on region and give them worksheets and say, hey, which of these are you going to start? And they'll get the contact information of the folks in their group and be like, okay, we're all from North Carolina, and we all have decided, you know, what we need is a seed swap or a plant swap in our area. So let's start that, or a labor share, or we need, hey, some of us like we're starting commercial farms, but we don't have enough production, so let's form a CSA together or a co-op together. So
you'll leave with like a network. So
that's
that'll
what
be
we're
really
trying
cool
to do.
about it.
It's truly not just throw a festival, but it's not just a learning festival. We're gonna have amazing teachers and foraging and everything like that, but it's gonna be also specifically let's network, let's build a crew of people around. Right, it'll mostly be people from the Southeast, but there may be folks from other areas as well. I think we have some people come from New England.
Yeah, from the Dakotas too.
Yeah, Dakotas. Yeah. So hopefully we can start these pockets, and then also all of us can continue to network as a group. And we're working on, besides our farm products, we also want shippable products so that we could have a network of other like-minded farm stands and send our mail. Send a big box of whatever we're sending out. It could be jams, or jellies, or hot sauces, or whatever we make from the stuff on our farm. It's a different way to really extend our sales beyond our immediate community. Chicken Juice says, what counties do y'all recommend that are friendlier to this kind of stuff? Very good question. So I can only speak to my area. We're in Hickman County. I like it because it's it's exactly an hour from here to downtown Nashville. So we have access to all of the job market there, and also higher dollar sales for our food products. But we're not even in the suburbs. We're really far removed from it, and development is kind of going in other directions. So we're as close as you can get to a city without really being a part of that culture. But this place is very free, never locked down, none of that. People here just won't tolerate that. It does have building codes, is the only negative. However, they're not bureaucratic about it. I've even heard that some people live in their houses before they pass inspection, and nobody says a thing. And you are allowed to live in an RV for 18 months in this county while you're building.
So you could build a lot.
So that helps. And I live here, so if you want to build without building codes and they come harass you, call me and I will be there, and I will defend your rights to do whatever you want on your property. But they're not too bureaucratic. It's not a huge fee. If you're coming from Oregon or California, it's nothing compared to that. It's I think like $1,500 is what you're going to pay in permits and fees, maybe a little more.
Yeah, depending on the square footage.
But I mean, it kind of made like I'm anti-building code, and I'm going to oppose them and try to get them removed from this county. However, unless you're doing a shed or a tiny home, it makes sense to build the code anyway. This was a kit house. It was easy to build relatively. And then it's bank financeable, so you could sell it for a much higher price than if it's not built to code. So if you're already kind of looking at building to code anyway, it's a good county. It's very free in most other respects. You can subdivide if you meet some basic qualifications. Great land for homesteading, a lot of like-minded people. So that's Hickman. Perry County is a good one. No building codes. Very many like-minded people down here. We have a lot of good homesteading friends. A lot of Amish, a lot of Mennonites. Yeah, it's further out from the city, which is pro and con. Benton County, a lot of folks moving out to Benton County. There's very cheap land out there.
Recreational.
Yep. Tons of recreation. There's the Tennessee River. Lots of like-minded people. Lots of very affordable land in that one, Benton County. That's if you're on a tight budget, look at Benton County. Lewis County, same as the others. No building codes. I think they're maybe talking about building codes. Let's see, Humphreys County. They just had a bunch of flooding, but a wonderful place. There may be some opportunities because of flooding, but make sure if you're getting into a floodplain, of course. There really this whole triangle outside of here. Most of the counties, if you're not immediately adjacent to a major city, they're pretty free places for the most part. Tennessee's a great state. It's also a little bit healthier financially, and it's going to be taking these blows a little bit better. It's also a little bit more apathetic, which in the cities, which is a good thing and a bad thing. But I think there will be less violence in places like Nashville. Memphis is hard to say, but so far so good. East Tennessee too, says T Black. Not much developing going on about half the area up to I-81. Yeah, East Tennessee, beautiful land too. And if you look traditionally at some of the artifacts up there, cultures go back a long time. So it looks like an area that survives cataclysm quite well. All of the steep mountains are your friends. There's a channel called Adapt 2030, David Dubine, and he's got a property up there. That's where his homestead is. And he's done deep research into cataclysmic cycles and all that, and he believes that's a pretty safe place. So, and it's just visually stunning. I love the Appalachians out there. Stephanie made it in. Hi, Stephanie. Looking forward to meeting you here pretty soon. Packard at Homestead's asking the answer. I don't know the question too. Oh, that got answered. Cool. Shouting at Cloud says it's a good idea to buy property right alongside the Amish property. Yes, it is. We have some folks out here in a town near us, and I would love to get a property out there to be surrounded by like-minded, self-sufficient people, which is what the Amish are. They're the original anarchists, really. Tommy D says a friend just got outbid on a house in Clinton, Tennessee, $58K over asking price. Yeah, the market's crazy here, but it's crazy anywhere. If you are totally budgetless and you can only get like $500 together, then your best odds are Arkansas. There's still a lot of cheap land in Arkansas. A lot of recreational lots around those lakes too. Like last I checked, which was a few months ago, there were RV lots which are 40 by 100 by lakes, some of them adjacent to government land. So big, like tons of areas for hunting and fishing for $500. And I've bought them before, so you're not going to find that anywhere. So it may not be at 40 by 100 isn't much, but you can have a good sized garden on that, and you can throw an RV or a little cabin or a tiny house or a normal house on it. Probably won't perk for septic, but if you're doing composting toilet, you can get away with that in Arkansas. So anybody can save $500. A homeless person can save $500. So anybody can get land, get their homestead if you're willing to, potentially uproot and build community wherever you land. But Tennessee's cheap. There are areas in this county where lots can be had for $2,000 or $3,000. They're in some of the rougher areas where there's kind of there's drug problems happening out there. But if you're on a budget, you could look at that and say, all right, let's clean this up. Let's fix this broken place. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with that particular area. So if you're interested in that, hit us up and I'll send you to the website of that place. T Black says I'm partial to either the Plateau, which is 2 hours east of Nashville, or up I-81 in Greene County. He's in Greene County. Okay, yeah, great spots out there. Really just like search county websites to get an idea of what they're like. If they don't say anything about building codes, there's probably not any building codes. Shouting at Cloud says the most successful farms have children and employ their children as a real job in adulthood. Yeah, a farm is a family business, and that's always what it was supposed to be. Our families were always supposed to be businesses. And of course, there's a line between overworking your children and destroying their childhood, but like giving them a role in the business and making them a partner in it is crucial, I think, to making community work. Actually, we're supposed to be all working together from the very beginning, and children have roles that they're better at. We've been raising Holly. She's an Australian Shepherd. She's way too high energy. We're way too busy to be training her properly. And in retrospect, raising a dog is kind of a child's job. They're really good at it. They have all day to do it. They love dogs. And traditionally, like, kids raise dogs. And so like that's a really important role that a lot of people take for granted until you have a dog and you don't have an outlet for its energy. Not that you can get another dog and there's things you can do, but a kid that raises a dog generally does a pretty good job instinctively because they're focused on them. They're outside playing. They don't have jobs to do. They just are. So that's like a job. And there's a lot of jobs like that are kind of play for children. But of course, I think, I've done teaching for a long time, and there's what you just simply incentivize children to enjoy work, and they can be pretty effective. And you can still be like, you know what, you just need to pick up that bucket of rocks. But I grew up in a store. So it was like a little country store that my parents owned. So I was very much a part of the business growing up. And I felt honored, when they gave me new roles. Sometimes it was judge, washing a bunch of dishes after catering jobs was not the same thing, but running the cash register and being given responsibility has helped me a lot in life. It's taught me business skills. It's helped me be more entrepreneurial, and as a result, be more financially independent. And so a farm is like training ground for kids. It's like a real opportunity to raise up a child in how to do business properly and how to work and everything. And you can go too far, and you can go not far enough. Obviously, you shouldn't be using a child without thought, without a care. But if you're a parent, you're going to care about your kid. You're not going to overwork them. Oh, you did mean to say Billy from Perma Pastures and Jester from Metcalf Mills. Yeah, another great one. Great one. In Texas, we are riddled with federal agent homesteaders, and they call themselves Freedom Cells, and they're very glowing. Freedom Cells is an interesting thing. I was intrigued by that, but I had decided not to attach my name to that. I'm just building my Freedom Cell around me. I don't need to put my name on a website or anything like that. But I'll let everyone make their own conclusions about that.
Sun right now.
Yeah, Gabby's getting hit by the sunshine here. We've got our, this is where the sun sets, goes behind that window. And most of it's blocked off by a tree. We designed it to not come through this time of year, but that tree's starting to lose its leaves. And so then we do want that light in because it'll warm up the house. Shouting Clouds, a number of people have been arrested and caught bogus charges in associating with the Freedom Cells here in Texas. Yeah, I've been suspicious of that from the beginning. Houston County is very rural. That's good. Oh, yeah, out here in Tennessee. Houston County is a good one. I've looked at that, yeah. There's so many more communities or counties than I can list that are great options. Again, Tennessee, with the exception of the major cities and the immediately adjacent counties to those cities, great state in so many ways. Abundant water, abundant resources. Most of it's up in the hills, so it's not destroyed with commercial agriculture unless you're down in the Delta. Healthy families, people who don't like tyranny. I think I mentioned in another video a while back, there's actually counties here in Tennessee, when they all seceded from the Union, some of those counties then also just went and seceded from the Confederacy. They're like, we just kind of don't want a part of any of this. And that's really what you want to be in times of collapse is not neutral, but places that just they don't want anybody governing them, which is how we should all be. We don't need rulers at all. We don't. We need to be the leaders. And when that void is kept empty because we don't allow government, then that void will be filled at a decentralized level. Shouting Clouds also says, if you don't have children on your farm, you're in for a really rough life as you get older and try to do your chores. It never ends pretty. Yeah, and a lot of baby boomers who are seeing the problems, they actually have the resources to go out and build homesteads, but they're not thinking about like, what are you going to do in 20 years when you're not physically able to do this? And that's why the role of baby boomers right now is absolutely, you are in charge of building the communities. If you have any kind of assets, if you have a 401k, get it out of there. First of all, I'm no financial advisor, but how long do you think they're going to keep this charade of a stock market up? Get it out of there and put it in real assets. If you have any money, put it in real assets, land, tools, labor saving devices, infrastructure to grow food. But if it blows my mind that there are any boomers right now, they're sitting on $300,000, $400,000 houses. They have 401ks. Some of them still have something left after it's all been stolen in 2008 and now. Some of them quite a few of them are sitting on real assets and they want a homestead and they don't think this equation through. It's like, you're the community builder, or you need to be partnering with community builders. Say, hey, I've got X amount of dollars. I can buy 40 acres. And I know that in my old age, I'm only going to be able to farm 10. And you can spend a lot of time making passive systems. Like we're building our systems over time. For now, we're using a lot of like temporary structures like chicken tractors, but eventually everything's going to be really strong, well-built fences, and it's going to be on a spoke. And we'll essentially release them out into this paddock and this paddock and this paddock. And so that ideally and everything is designed, like all of our annual production is designed beneath the contour level of where our water catchment is. So everything below that gets fed automatically. So watering our commercial crops in our garden is that. It's one turn for the day. That's how much watering is. And then taking care of our animals for the most part is opening a gate. Of course, there's plenty of exceptions and you still have to move feed around, but as many of those things as we can mitigate, we are. But in the end, yeah, if you don't have somebody younger, you just need young bodies. That's the reality of farming. Yeah. And so if you don't have kids or kids who want to take up the lifestyle, then you need to build some kind of community carefully. You don't want to be bringing on or subsidizing, bad behavior and bad people, but trying to bring like-minded people and maybe giving up some of your land for that. Maybe you can afford 40 acres. You only need 20 or 10. You carve off a few 5-acre lots and you sell it to 4 or 5 or 6 people who are very much like-minded. Boomers have the most to lose by not building community if they want to homestead. Because the reality of it is it's a physical job, no matter how passive you make it. T Black says, little arrow says, Boomer having a heck of a time doing this gardening thing. Just more mulch. More compost over the top. That's the answer to all gardening. More compost on the top. Ruth Stout said when they asked her how much mulch is right enough for a garden, she said more. And if you just do compost, you don't have to even worry about anything. It won't burn your plants. You just anytime you can pile compost on your beds, just do it. The square foot gardening method is like half compost, half soil, and that's about I think the ratio. But you never have to till it in. You just keep adding it over the top. This winter, when our beds go dormant, we're just loading mulch on top of them: sticks, straw, grass clippings, manures, food scraps, anything. It's just all going on there. So that's the key to gardening. And then just don't be afraid to kill plants. Throw lots of seeds. If they don't germinate, throw more. I like this lazy approach of just intensely make one area really good soil, and then most things will grow. And then also when things struggle, don't worry about it. Just plant somewhere else. Instead of spending the time fighting insects and bugs and creating more problems, just dig up another area and plant more, and just keep expanding your growing area, and don't worry about saving little things. Like we're trying to grow for reality. And now we're not trying to grow pretty tomatoes. We're trying to grow volume so we don't die. That's the attitude we need to be gardening with. So garden for volume by planting the biggest variety of things too. So you know that some will succeed and some will fail. That's how you garden. It's a numbers game. Just like assume that you're going to lose 25, 50% of your crop and you'll be fine. Well, I think we're maybe coming up to a natural wrapping up point. We're at 55 minutes, y'all. This has been such a cool discussion. I love it when it goes down rabbit holes. I had a lot of fun with that. But we're going to get back to work here on our homestead. Do think about those leadership roles. There is nobody coming to save us, and wherever you're at, it's time to just look around and say, I'm the leader of moving this forward, of moving towards a regenerative future, a sustainable future, a healthier future, a more free future where we are not subject to tyranny and totalitarianism. We have to build all of those things. Nobody's going to do it. That doesn't mean you're going to be alone. When you start standing up, you'll see people come join you, and then they're doing things too. And it's happening here around us. That's how we're building our community. So just start doing it, and it'll happen. Like that's what we realized is like, oh, we don't need 400 acres to build a community. We can build it here. We've got our little hub. It's for our 5 acres. This is what we own. But we just planted a new community garden at the church near us. And we have another one in a community near us that's like a vacation community. We built 2 community gardens. We've connected with like-minded people in doing so, and they're wanting to do more projects with us, and they're inviting us to their events and bringing us onto their homesteads and helping us out as we build our own homestead. So like, it just trust that it will happen if you start acting rightly and getting your own act together and cleaning your own room, as Jordan Peterson would say. You don't have to try. It happens naturally. Yeah.
And no matter what, you'll be better for it. Like even if it's not the results you thought you might get.
So can't wait to meet you as well, Stephanie. Looking forward to seeing you at the festival. Going to be an amazing time. Hello, Mark. Good seeing you too. Thank you. I guess we're all done. We finished our energy drink, so I think we're totally ready to do some gardening now. So I'm gonna go plant some garlic, and we'll see y'all next time. In the meantime, stay safe, be well, and happy homesteading.